And it is go time. Another week is here, and Chew on Sports is here to deliver. Man, I really like our intro. I'm Zach Van Meter. Welcome to the show. This is the end-all be-all for info of what's going on kind of right now for the week and for the weeks coming up in sports. My player two, Chris Temple, is here as always. Chris, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. How are you doing this evening?
We're ready to rock and roll. Let's get started right away and just talk about what we're going to discuss this episode. So first off, Chris and I are going to be doing, as promised, the continuing breakdown of the different divisions in the NFL. This is AFC North. Chris has broken down the Chiefs and the Raiders. I have the Broncos and the Chargers. The NBA Finals, or AFC West, excuse me, not North. I ate paint chips for lunch today. Forgive me, fam. The NBA's Finals preview, also, that starts tomorrow. We're going to talk about who we think's going to win and if Toronto even has a chance. We've got some Kevin Durant news. Apparently, Houston is having a fire sale. Talking Mavs, Vegas released some crazy free agency. What's the word I'm searching for? Odds. There we go. Yeah, it's an odd word. Vegas released some odds on what player is going to go where, so we'll discuss that and how this Kevin Durant news might have changed one tremendously. And we're going to talk a little AEW wrestling. The other debut pay-per-view this weekend. And also, Chris and I, we love talking football, and we are deep into our first ever Dynasty draft right now. And it is insane in the membrane, but I think we've found a way to survive and put together some good squads. Chris might be having to draft Ryan Tannehill with his next pick, though, to survive quarterback world, but I'm excited to talk to that with you. And also, we're going to talk about how in the world are we going to survive without Game of Thrones in our life? How are we going to do this? What shows are we going to find? So, that is that. So, to start, you can find us on the social media. Myself at Chew on Sports. Chris, what is your handle?
My handle is ctemp03.
Perfect. So please give us a follow. See the stuff we talk about. It's mainly fantasy football and sports related. For me, I post some video game stuff as well. Also, so just to get started, number one, we're gonna jump right into the NBA. Okay. So the big news today that's going all over Twitter, it's trending, is about Kevin Durant. First off. Kevin Durant just sold his house, and he just bought a house in New York.
Huge news. I saw that, and I was like, why would you do it before the finals? Why wouldn't you wait?
That's the worst timing ever.
Exactly. Why? Why?
At least it's not like losing game one and selling your house, right? But I think he's gone.
I think he is gone. That tells me he's gone right there. He doesn't even have a house anymore.
He's not even entertaining the idea of coming back.
Where is he living now? Is he just going to stay in hotels till the season's over?
Guess so, pretty much. Yeah.
Or did you tell him, hey fam, I need 90 days to move out?
I really don't know. It's an interesting move. So, nevertheless, yeah, Nets or Knicks, right? He's either going to surf or swim, right? I don't know.
It depends on if he wants to be on a full rebuild in the Knicks or if he wants to go in a team that's almost ready-made.
Well, I have an interesting spin on Brooklyn, by the way, which we're about to get into when we talk about everything else that I want to discuss with you, and it relates directly to the Mavs, so I'm interested in your opinion. So that's big news right there. He's also going to miss Game 1. He is in Toronto.
Yes.
So he can be available for the series. So before we get into the series, let's talk about the other breaking NBA news today. Houston apparently is trying to trade everyone.
Except for maybe James Harden.
I
read that everybody was available, but I would still think that James Harden.
That's the spin,
is tradable, yeah.
Right? Is he because they've said it that he is a lifer. He's not going anywhere.
Yes.
That's what they've said. Chris Paul, worst contract in the NBA.
Absolutely.
Him and Gordon Hayward.
Don't want him.
I would say.
Don't want either one of them.
Man. So the Mavs are not having discussions with them. The rumor is the Mavs would certainly listen. We are big on Capella. We've been linked to his name for the past few seasons, actually. So I'm intrigued in taking his contract on if it involves not having Chris Paul. But I guess we'll see how it shakes out. Obviously, there's two things that the Rockets want. They either want to do a trade that's going to bring a really good player over, right? That's going to compete now, or do you think they're trying to make this trade now before the draft so they can get rid of their draft picks and try to gain cap space going into free agency so they can go after Kawhi or Kevin Durant or fill in the blank?
Well, I think they've realized that they're not good enough to win with the squad that they have. I think they need cap space to try and get another big star out there. And Chris Paul's just not that guy.
I think I'm intrigued. I actually called Lonzo Ball to Houston last year. I had it before the Chris Paul deal happened.
Yeah.
I have a weird feeling that might be on the table because you can send pieces. The teams could trade with each other. LeBron and obviously Chris Paul, close relationship there. Lonzo Ball goes to Houston.
Well, the Lakers have the cap space to make the move right now.
Right. So that would be an interesting destination. There's other Lonzo Ball rumors about him going to the Wizards for Bradley Beal. And the Lakers are an interesting spot, kind of like the Mavs, because you can take on deals because you've already got the cap space, so that you don't have to really match contracts.
Well, I mean, I know we were talking about Houston, but if I'm the Lakers, I'm blowing that thing up too. I've got 35-year-old LeBron.
Oh, well, they've
James.
been trying to, for sure. Well, they're not getting rid of LeBron yet, I don't think.
I would. And the only reason I would is because he's 35. He's going on 35. I think he's the same age as I am. I think our birthdays are right around the same, too. So
okay.
He's 34 right now. Almost 35 if he's hasn't turned 35 yet. How many good years does he have left? 2 or 3?
I don't know, man. Could he be like Tom Brady? I mean,
he's a freakish athlete. You don't know. Yeah.
Tom Brady is still good. He's very good. He's still winning Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
Peyton Manning, all of a sudden it just dropped and left. Drew Brees is still, he tapered off a little year. I'm wondering if we're getting close with Drew Brees.
Well, he's 40.
Roethlisberger is still balling.
He's 37.
Yeah, Roethlisberger had the best year last year that he's had in quite some time. He leaned down a little bit. So
horrible on the road still.
Not last year. He was the number 2 fantasy quarterback, kind sir. But the year before, yes. No, last year he beat that finally. Trust me, I know. Because I had him on my team. He won a championship.
I traded Ben Roethlisberger and James Conner last year for Saquon Barkley.
Oh, gosh. You trade machine, you. So, on to the NBA Finals, and then we'll start talking about free agency again. And we'll go back into the NBA. We don't want to get too sidetracked here. So, the NBA Finals is Houston. Toronto's home. Does this give them a chance in hell, being home? Does it change anything, the fact they're the home team?
No, they'll win game 1 and then they'll lose the next 4.
If Durant misses both games in Toronto, which I don't think he will, especially if they lose game 1, right? I think he will play, and I think he's there for a reason. And DeMarcus Cousins is still game time for tomorrow, too.
Yeah.
Does Toronto have any chance at all, you think?
No. I mean, the Warriors are a freaking all-star team.
Yeah.
I mean, you lose Kevin Durant, you still got...
You got Iguodala, you got Klay Thompson.
There we go. Sorry, I went blank. Curry, Green.
Oh, Draymond Green's so much better with Durant off the court, by the way.
Ball spacing's better.
Yo, he's just a good talent, man. They just... Don't get me wrong, they've won a championship with both of them. So, but as far as his game excelling, you forget how good he is. Like fantasy basketball, for instance, I'll use this as a comparison. He was not very good for fantasy this year. I had him 2 years ago before Durant, and Homebrew was a freaking baller for me and got me to the championship.
Well, you also got to think they got Cousins midway through the season too. That took a lot of playing time.
Of course, yes, absolutely. Just there's only one basketball to go around. But the Splash Brothers have been out for blood, and they're going to continue to do that. They're prepared to dominate. I think Toronto's going to put up a good fight. I think it's going to be a good series, and what I mean by that is competitive games. Last year was a sweep, right, against Cleveland. The first game was the infamous J.R. Smith dribbling it out when he shouldn't have, and it went to overtime and they lost. And that series still would have been Golden State winning, but I do think we're going to have good games. I think it's going to be a good game to watch. And unfortunately, I do think that Toronto... I'm going to go with 6 games. I think that Toronto loses in 6. And Golden State wins it, and then Durant goes his separate way. And I think the NBA is going to balance out with especially all the crazy stuff we're about to get into here in a second. Just to touch on hockey real quick before we get into free agency, Boston absolutely beat down St. Louis. They look hands down like the better team. It was 4-2. I want St. Louis to win so bad. No more Boston championships, please. But this looks like if Boston can't, or I'm sorry, if St. Louis can't win tonight, I'm worried that one's going to go 4 or maybe 5. So it might be over quick. So we'll see. We'll see how that happens. Boston looks better. They look like they've been there before. They look like the moment's not too big for them. So let's see, man. St. Louis has had so much chemistry and such a nice run since April, or even February, excuse me. So maybe they can catch some of that fire, take the game tonight, and we've got a series again.
Have they lost every game one?
No, they beat Dallas in game 1, right?
I can't remember. That's where I was at.
I don't remember either. They're good. Their rookie goalie's been good. I'm intrigued to see what happens, man. I've obviously not as invested into hockey as I need to be or should be since the Stars broke my heart, because I mainly am a local hockey fan. But hopefully it turns into a series, man, because nothing's better than awesome elimination games and Game 7s. So on to free agency for the NBA. So I'm going to pull this up on Twitter. This is via Brad Rowland, who is at BT Rowland on Twitter. So he posted on here yesterday, actually, the odds for the top, I think it's the top 7, if I'm not mistaken, players in the NBA and the teams that they could go to and what the odds are. So we'll start with Durant. And I think the odds for this got even worse for the better. But the Knicks are 6-5 favorites to win Durant, to get Durant. That's stupid, man. Like you have to bet like what, $500 to make $100 or something stupid.
It's not good odds.
Clippers are 17 to 10 odds. Warriors are 2-1, and then you can pretty much just write off everybody else. The Lakers are 6-1, Nets 6-1, which I've been dark horsing them, and then Thunder 40-1. So I think legitimately it's Knicks all the way. I think the Nets will be a good fit, and I'll tell you what could happen and how that could be a exact kind of how that could affect the Mavericks adversely if he does make that decision here in a second. So what do you think? We're looking at this right here. Thunder's even 40-1. What are you Knicks train all the way?
I'm Knicks or Nets.
Knicks or Nets, just like I am. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's one of those New York cities.
So Kawhi is 2-3 Raptors, 3-2 Clippers, 4-1 Lakers, 6-1 Nets, 10-1 Knicks. So pretty much you could take the Knicks out of the table, right? Mm-hmm. So the top 4 are pretty close, man. That's somewhat there. So I'm going Clippers, man. I don't care if they find a way to win.
I agree. I think he's going to the Clippers too. I don't think he wants to stay in Toronto no matter what happens.
Right. I think that's just what he's going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not the same guy as LeBron, and we touched upon the lack of respect he has for LeBron because he's trying to recruit him, right, already. But the way I look at it is this. LeBron has made it acceptable to take a team to the peak and just walk away. So it's not as huge of a shocker as if it's done now. Because he's done it twice. And I'm not saying that won't hurt the people of Toronto and it won't be crushing for them. I'm not saying that at all. But would I like him to go back to Toronto? I really would. It would keep the East really strong. Yeah. And it would make about 5 really good teams in the East when everything's over, said and done with. And you'd have about 5 really good teams, maybe even 8 in the West when everything shakes down. But, Kawhi's going to do Kawhi, man.
He proved that last year in San Antonio.
Yeah, so Kemba Walker, Hornets 1-1.
That's really weird odds.
I think I personally feel that because he got voted to the All-NBA team, they're really in play.
You don't think he's going to turn down $30 million?
Well, it's an extra year and extra money.
Well, it's $30 million overall. It's an extra $5-6 million a year.
Yeah, and it's an extra year. So he can sign there for 5, which will be the last contract of his career, pretty much.
Dallas can give him a Supermax 2 in a way, but obviously the Hornets are able to give him that extra year. Right.
So it's So
but here's the thing. He's 27, 28. Do you want a championship or not?
Who, the Mavs or
Kemba
or
Walker.
him? I don't know.
This is going to say everything about Kemba Walker as a person. If he resigns with the Bobcats, it's about the money.
The Hornets.
That is true. The Hornets. If he resigns with the Hornets.
Well, then they might as well become the Bobcats again if they lose him.
Yeah.
He's a great player, man. I'm intrigued to see where this goes as well. Lakers are 3-2, Knicks 4-1, Mavericks 4-1, Clippers 10-1, Bulls 14-1. So if you're a Mavs fan like myself and I'm rooting for the Kemba to Dallas, there's a fighting chance to get him. So what you don't like is the fact the Knicks are just as good. So let's say this is where the Kevin Durant decision comes into play. If Kevin Durant goes to the Nets, right? I'm pretty sure that either Kemba or who is it? Or Kyrie. I'm pretty sure that dynamic's happening. I think it's either going to be Kevin Durant and him or him and him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why it's interesting to me if Kevin Durant chooses, let's say Kevin Durant chooses Nets and Kyrie does as well. Now they're not going to re-sign D'Angelo Russell, and we're going to get we're going to get into him in a minute. But the top two individuals that are betting odds to take Russell is Nets 1-4, Mavericks 3-1, then Knicks 4-1. So that is very intriguing to me, and the reason why it's intriguing is because if we miss out on Kemba, and he ends up going to the Lakers, wherever else, there's still a chance to get a stud in D'Angelo Russell, depending on where Durant goes.
Oh, yeah.
If Durant goes to the Knicks, Kyrie goes to the Knicks with him, or Kemba, D'Angelo stays, Mavs are talking to Chris Middleton or fill in the blank, right? So the Bulls are in the running for D'Angelo Russell as well, and then the Clippers are 12-1. So if I'm a betting guy, because I do think I'm more Knicks favorited for a Durant, I think D'Angelo's going to stay there. They have the power to match any contract too, by the way, because he's restricted. So no matter who he talks to, he could talk to the Mavs, they could match it, and he has to go there.
Yeah.
It has to play.
I mean, if I'm the Nets, I don't think I'd let Russell go. I think I'd match any deal. I mean, he had an all-star caliber season this year.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's hard to let that go.
I just can't foresee them. I don't think they would keep him if Kevin Durant went there, because I think Kevin Durant would team up with one of these point guards personally.
Well, I think you could do just fine with D'Angelo Russell and Kevin Durant.
I think I agree. As a basketball fan, I agree. I just don't think that's what Durant's going to say. I think Durant wants to team up with somebody. From what we hear, this is from what we're seeing from these reports, right? So Jimmy Butler's next. Jimmy Butler's odds-on favorite to go back to the Sixers. Then it's the Knicks at 6-1, the Nets 8-1, the Lakers 8-1, the Clippers 8-1, the Rockets 9-1. So he's just fill in the blank. He's got 6 teams he could easily go to. The Bulls are 10-1, the Heat are 12-1.
Nobody knows. He doesn't even know.
I don't think he's going to go back to the Sixers, man. And it's because I think that Jimmy Butler is kind of ticked that Chicago traded him away, number one. So I don't know why they're even back on this list to begin with. And he didn't choose to go to Minnesota, and he didn't choose to go to Philly. So I think just out of spite, he's just going to be like, I'm doing me. I'm going 100% where I want to go.
I mean, and
that's okay. I applaud him for this. That's not...
Maybe he could just be a good teammate for once.
Right. Klay Thompson, the Warriors, and we both think this is going to be the case, are 1-5 favorites to sign him. The Nets are 3-1. The Mavericks are 6-1. Lakers 6-1. Kings 8-1. Jazz 10-1, and I don't care about anybody else after that. So another player the Mavs are in. This would be the best fit for the Mavs. It's not going to happen though. He will be back with the Warriors. I don't see a difference there. What do you think?
It's either Warriors or Lakers for me on that one. It's either or on those. I mean, I think he's going to stay with the Warriors, but if he doesn't, I think the Lake shows where he's going.
Yeah, I just think that the Splash Bros, man, they just want to be they want to be iconic. They want to win before KD, win with KD, and they want to try to win after KD.
Oh, they would be iconic if they could pull that off.
I think that's what they want there. I think that's what they want it to be.
What would that be? 5 championships? This is their 5th year in a row, and they only lost 1.
If they win this year, that'll be 4 in 5 years.
Just think they shouldn't have lost.
in 16. It could be 6 straight. Yeah, this could be. Woo!
16 or 17.
They're good, man.
Yeah.
So Anthony Davis, I really don't care about because it's trades.
Yeah.
He's still favored to go to the Lakers. They had a meeting today. He still wanted to be traded. I still think Celtics. If I was in Vegas right now, I would put money on the Celtics for him to go there.
Are you going to make the Pelicans take old white boy bad contract? Do you make them take that contract?
I would try. Tatum and Hayward?
Yeah.
I would try. Unless they think Tatum's going to recover and be better. Not Tatum, Hayward, and they can move on and he can be back to his all-star, his what he got paid for.
Yeah.
Right? There's only 2 teams in on Middleton. Bucks are 1-5 favorites to sign him, which looks like more than likely that's where he's going to stay, but the Mavs are a dark horse at 4-1. And then Tobias Harris, Sixers 2-3. I think he stays there. Knicks 3-1, Mavs 6-1, Lakers 6-1, Kings 8-1. So I think Butler leaves and Tobias stays there, and that's fine. I think Tobias is a great player, so I'm totally cool with that. Would I like him as a Mav? Sure. Oddly enough, I would be okay with Middleton, with Tobias Harris. There's a lot of names on this list. I'm good with being a Mavs fan. So my question to you is, of the gentlemen we just named, we'll get Mavs centric here. Of the gentlemen that I just named on this pod, who do you want to be part of the big 3? Who do you want as number 3 with KP and Luka?
Well, I would love Klay Thompson out of that list, or Kevin Durant, but that's not going to happen.
So let's limit it to this. We got Kemba, we've got D'Lo, we've got Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, Tobias Harris. Which guy?
Middleton.
Why?
Because he's a tall swingman. I mean, this Mavs are a tall team. They're building tall, and the guy can play defense. I mean, the Mavs are not a good defensive team. They need more help out there. But the guy can run the floor. He would be great for this team.
I like it. I'm still Team Kemba. I'm thinking, and here's the reason why. Any one of these guys is max. That's all of your money. There's a trade exception and there's some other things that you can do, but that's pretty much everything, right? So I'm Team Kemba because I think that is the biggest game changer for our lineup and to make the Mavs the best chance of being a title contender, period. Not that I don't like Middleton's game or would be mad at having him or Tobias Harris for that matter. But I'm almost on team throw all the chips on Kemba, and if you strike out, build with little pieces like Julius Randle, Patrick Beverley, like you and I have talked about on this podcast multiple times. Because this team needs more than just 3 guys, I think.
Well, you have 3. I mean, you got Luka, KP, and then you got Hardaway Jr.
I just want him to be my 4th best player. I like Hardaway, and I'm a Hardaway truther.
Look at it this way, though. If you got those 3, you could sign Pat Beverley, and you could sign Julius Randle. That's your starting 5.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Oh, I'm totally on. I'm okay with it. In that case. And then technically, I think Julius Randle would end up being your 3rd best guy.
I think it'd be real close between those 2.
But it would be. You're right. It would be close. And you still have some players on the bench, but there's a lot of fun thing the Mavs can do with Courtney Lee still. A lot of cap space to be freed up. Re-signing Dwight Powell. Not re-signing Dwight. There's so many different moving pieces with what the Mavericks can do. I'm team the fact that we're in the running for all of these shows how dynamic Luka is and what we got with KP. And I think the Mavs, just if they made no moves at all, give me last year's roster with a healthy KP, and I think if they're not the 8th seed, they're like 2 games out of it.
Well, Charles Barkley said that KP and Luka would be the best 1-2 combination for the next 10 years.
Whoo! I feel it. It's going to be something special. This is going to be a fun basketball year. And what's really intriguing is you might not have to have a big 3. We talk about it, right? But if everything splits up, and it's still more than likely, I don't, unless it's the Lakers, I don't see someone taking Chris Paul's contract.
No.
So, unless it's the Lakers, I'm thinking that you're going to be looking at pretty much 2 studs on all the powerhouses. Don't get me wrong, really the Warriors is 3 studs with Draymond Green unleashed again, right?
And the fair thing to say about Golden State, though, is they drafted those 3 guys.
Oh, for sure, and I'm not hating on them for that at all.
I mean, you can't.
Because Boogie would probably go elsewhere. They're even linked to the Lakers. There's so many different moving parts with everything, but you got some guys going out east. That's why I would love Kawhi to stay. If you have Durant and Kyrie go to, if they go to the Knicks, right, then you have him stay in Toronto, and then you have Anthony Davis get traded to the Celtics. That you just got such a array of the way it's matched up. It would just make for such a tantalizing, awesome experience next year. Because you saw in the NBA this year, the first round was amazing. The competition in the playoffs. And then it just died off, man. It wasn't a very good... I mean, the Denver series in round 2 versus Portland was the best series of the playoffs.
Well, I don't know. The 76ers series was really good, too.
Yeah.
Against the Raptors, that went 7.
And then the rest were just bad.
And it took a magical Kawhi Leonard shot to force it 7.
Right. Well, you want everything to be good. You know, you want every single series to just to draw you in, and it just lost its luster because the Warriors series was not that. And then just I don't know, man. I really do hope that the Mavs make the right decision with who they get. Because you don't want to be married to one of these guys and it's the wrong. These are all good dudes. These are all dudes that show to be high character guys. If we sign Tobias Harris, does that mean we're going to get Boban as well? The big tall white guy who was in John Wick?
No.
Is that part of the package? Is that how that works?
No.
So good time. So I'm pumped to see where it goes. So as a Mavs fan, I'm optimistic. We've got exactly a month. So I hope you podcaster listeners are ready because we'll be talking a lot of free agency moving forward because that is the end game here in the next month.
Yeah. A month and a day, and at 6 o'clock, they'll start broadcasting it. It'll be live.
Man, I'm so pumped about that.
That is pretty cool. Instead of doing it at midnight like all the other leagues do.
Right.
And like they used to.
You know what?
Prime time it.
I'm going to do this right now, and you're not ready for it, and I'm letting everyone know who's listening to Chew on Sports right now. Let's do YouTube Live for that, for like the first hour or two, with all the chatters going on.
It's on a Friday, right?
It's a Thursday night. What do you think?
I should be in town, yeah.
All right, we'll do that. We'll address that, but that seems like a good plan.
Yeah.
So on to the NFL. So big news has been coming out the last few days before we get into talking fantasy and doing a breakdown of our divisions, and we're gonna have a strike.
It's still 2 years away.
Right. So we have 2 seasons, and then they're talking a year. Are they just playing? Are they just talking big right now? Are they talking big, hoping to scare the execs and to give them what they want, or are they serious?
I think they have to be serious. The NFL owners and Roger Goodell have too much power. They have the worst contract situation in all of sports. Roger Goodell is a dictator. He says this is what's going to happen, and that's the way it is. Even no matter how bad he messes up on certain rulings.
Man, I don't want football.
The biggest problem though is the NFLPA commissioner. Smith is the worst commissioner or leader for his player union in all of sports. He's terrible. He gets out negotiated on everything, and the players should out that guy before the new contract comes through.
Well, my thing is, I'm actually on the player side. I don't. If they strike, I'm never for it. They get paid so much to do something they love, but at the same time, I'm for the fact that, like, Roger Goodell has too much power, and there needs to be a commissioner. And I do agree that these players, the domestic violence and everything, it's such a bad look for our youth. And these kids that are wanting to be NFL athletes, they need to know that you have to be a role model. You have to carry yourself a certain way. So let's just take that out of it. But the fact that Goodell has so much power that he could make any decision he wants regardless, and he can make every situation different, there's no unity to it, that's something that needs to change.
Oh, absolutely.
That's something that needs to be written in a contract that this is the penalty. These players should be able to smoke weed, man. It's legal in a few states. In the next decade, it's going to be legal in almost every state.
Here's the thing about players smoking weed. You know how many drug tests they get a year?
5?
1.
Oh, even better.
And they get told when it is.
Yeah, some of the players get randoms, though.
Very few.
So, but some players just can't quit, or they're not smart enough, and they want to do it for pain.
You have 3 players that are the problem.
In the NBA, they smoke weed, though.
They smoke weed in baseball.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, just let them do their thing. It's not as long as you're not there. How many people have been suspended in the NBA because of drugs? 5 in the last 10 years.
None that I can recall, honestly.
Well, one just happened. Tyreek Evans got suspended for drugs. It's like crack. And then OJ Mayo got suspended for drugs as well.
That's right. I forgot about both of those guys.
Roy Tarpley, ex-Mavs. So it's very few and far between.
Oh, yeah.
But it's something that needs to be addressed. I know they're wanting closer to, if not all, guaranteed money. I would agree. In the NBA, is it all guaranteed? It's pretty dang close,
it is
right?
all guaranteed.
So you make enough money. The NFL brings in more revenue than the NBA does, right?
Oh, a lot more.
So I mean, I'm with the players.
Here's the problem with that. The NBA has fully guaranteed contracts. How many players are on a team?
53.
No, in the NBA.
Oh, you just got 10. Or no, I'm sorry, like 13. And
okay, so you got 13 and all that money.
Right.
In the NFL, like you just said, it's 53, and I think they upped it to 56.
Yeah, but that doesn't change what you pay a year. It just now allows them to manipulate players and move on from people way too soon.
Well, that's the downfall of not being guaranteed. But if you guaranteed everybody's salaries, who's going to pay for all this?
You just can't make roster moves. Like look at Mark Ingram, for instance. Okay, let's use Mark Ingram as an example. Mark Ingram is an older running back, and they decided not to sign him because they knew how much money they would have to invest. So they're going with a younger guy. Mark Ingram was signed by Baltimore on a 3-year deal, which really means he's only going to play 2, and then he's going to be nowhere. You're going to see 2 more years of Mark Ingram, and then more than likely you will never hear from Mark Ingram again because he is going to be cut, right? And Justice Hill more likely will be the guy for the next 2 years after that. They will assign to give him one more deal, and this is the way the math works, and it's not fair. And it's killing running backs right now. Just absolutely slaying running backs right now. So it just makes you commit. We would almost go back to having 8 to 10 years of running backs if they changed this and made running back money guaranteed.
There's not enough money to go around, though, is the problem.
Well, sure there is.
No, there's not. If you start guaranteeing everybody's contract, there's not enough money.
Sure. You just can't make the moves you want to make. Like, think about it.
Then there's no point. If you can't make the moves you want to make within the salary cap, there's no point in having a salary cap. Because if I sign this guy, player X, and I can't maneuver around anything to go to player Y.
What difference is it than Tony Romo having to not be on our team and we still have to pay his salary for 2 years? What difference is that? Because there's a salary cap. We couldn't make moves. The Cowboys couldn't do anything because they were locked to that.
Because not everybody's money is guaranteed. You have players' contracts that expire. So if I sign player X to a 5-year deal, 3 years worth of guaranteed money now, well, after 3 years it doesn't work out, I don't have to pay this guy anymore. If I sign him to a 5-year deal and it's all guaranteed, that's 5 years no matter what I'm paying this guy.
Sure, but let's go.
But that's everybody. So every rookie deal is guaranteed. Every free agent signing contract is guaranteed. The cap strains all that. You just can't negotiate around it.
Well, let's draw a comparison real quick. So in the NBA, there's a salary cap, correct? Mm-hmm. And in the NBA, it's guaranteed, correct? Mm-hmm. So what rules do they have in place to make it where that's fine? Because what you're saying, it sounds like it's a situation that can't exist, but the NBA does it just fine. Take out the fact that
the NBA is a different entity too. The NBA doesn't have as many great free agents.
Oh well, it's a difference, but it's regardless of size, it's the same manipulation, right? In the NBA, what do you do? What do you do if you're looking to get rid of a player's contract? You trade them. In the NFL, if you're looking to get rid of a contract, what do? You cut them. In the NBA, you're allowed every year a stretch provision. A stretch provision means you cut a player and you divvy that up over 3 years. Or sometimes 4. So there are ways, there's buyouts, there's everything. The NBA has found a way to protect itself where every team can move on, right? Every team can but it still protects the player. And this all came about because of the strike. Because it wasn't like, there were so many different things, so they made it a way to where the ownership had flexibility to where they could try to keep their players, or they could move on from them if they wanted. So the NFL in a bubble, everything's a salary cap world, right? That's probably that won't change. And if it does, I think the Cowboys will win the Super Bowl for the next 50 years, because our owner has all the money, right? But I think that you can just institute a few things to steal from the NBA to make that, because Des Bryant, let's use him as an example, right? Why did nobody want to trade for Des Bryant? Take out the fact that declining skills not as good. Why did someone not want to trade for him?
I don't know. I mean, he was only owed $8 million, which would have been a bargain at that time.
That's what I'm saying. You're overthinking it. Why didn't they want to trade him?
Because they could get him for free.
They could get him for free. Because of why? Because the Dallas Cowboys were going to cut him, right?
Well, it's the same thing in the NBA. If you get cut, somebody's still got to pay that old contract.
But they don't cut players in the NBA. It's very, very rare because you don't want to waste your shreds provision. Most of the time you find somebody who wants to take the contract. Look at the Knicks. What did the Knicks do? The Knicks said, man, we want to go after these free agents in the summer. We have Tim Hardaway's bad contract. We have this, we have that. Can you absorb them? We said yes. So what did they do? They took DeAndre Jordan is a good player, but they took his contract because they're prepared to move on. They had to pay him $20 million last year. They don't care. $20 million, see you later, sayonara. Right? So in the NFL, you have a team, let's say the Saints, are like, man, I could use Dez Bryant on my team. I want Dez Bryant. Here's a draft pick. This wins for everyone because now the Cowboys have a 4th round draft pick for Dez Bryant, which is extra to build their team and manipulate the salary cap because cheaper player with 4th round pick, right? The Saints got their guy, so it really can work if the principles of the league changes in that, if you see where I'm coming, right? It's like if you use the NBA philosophy for it and you shift salaries that way, it makes it where it works because that's basically what Seattle just did. Seattle's like, man, we got this defender we're paying so much money to right now. He's really good, but we're not going to be able to pay him because we're about to extend Russell Wilson. We want to keep him. So what did they do? They moved him for picks to supplement their team so they can still afford everything, right? This is something the Cowboys might be doing in 2 or 3 years with Tank. Because so much is guaranteed and maybe they get into a lock jam. Who knows? There's so many different moving pieces. So we'll see what happens. The salary cap does keep rising. And I do agree that more money should be guaranteed. I don't know if it's 80%, if it's just everyone signs a 3-year deal. And I don't know how to move that around. That's why I'm not a businessman in the NFL.
Here's a way to make it work. An easy way to make it work. You basically say, top 10 players, this is what your salary is. You slot it like the NBA. That's one thing that the NFL doesn't have. You've got quarterbacks that are making $36 million a year.
Right.
Well, you can't afford to pay somebody 20% of your salary cap.
No, I mean the next quarterback deal will be 40. Patrick Mahomes will probably break the NFL when he gets his deal.
Yeah, this will be his 3rd year, and they'll be able to renegotiate after this year.
Yeah, so...
I mean, but if you're Kansas City, you don't renegotiate until you pick up his 5th-year option.
That in a perfect world, that's what you would hope, right?
Well, that would be the smart thing. The cheaper, the better.
We'll see, man. We'll see. Well, on to our breakdown, because we could talk about this stuff for the next 5 hours. So, Chris and I broke down the AFC West. Excuse me, everyone, not the North. That's what it was last week. Chris has done the Chiefs and the Raiders, and I've done the Broncos and the Chargers. So, Chris, as always, I'll let you start. So, give it to me, man. Who we got?
All right, we're going to start with the Raiders. Well, the Raiders obviously are a team in flux. Not sure what they're doing. I don't know if they're sure what they're doing. I mean, look at it from this way. A week before the draft, they kicked all their scouts out. Said, go home. Don't come back.
Right.
Might have been 2 weeks, but they didn't trust anybody in their scouting department. So the first thing they do is make a bonehead decision and pass up on Jonathan Allen and draft Clyde Farrell, 17th overall.
Who's a good player?
Who's a good player, but he's not top 5 worthy.
No.
You should have taken Jonathan Allen, and if you still wanted Clyde Farrell, you probably could have got him.
Where they drafted the running back.
Where they drafted the running back and then got the running back 27th. Now, their next 2 picks really weren't that bad. I mean,
Do you like the running back they got?
I do. They needed a running back.
Okay.
I mean, I got it right here. I got a lot of notes for the Raiders. Josh Jacobs out of Alabama. He was the clear-cut best running back in the league. And then with the so they used the Bears pick for that right. They got for Khalil Mack. And then with the Cowboys pick, they drafted Jonathan Abrams, the Mississippi State kid. Now, he had a heart defect, which is the reason why he made him drop, because he was a top 10 player as well. Okay. So they got a really good guy at 27 without having to move. So they got 3 really good pieces.
What about Antonio Brown?
I mean, that was the next place I was going. That was a good trade for them. I think they didn't give up a lot at all to get Antonio Brown.
No, the Cowboys gave up more for Amari Cooper.
Yeah, but this is a lot different situation.
Of course. No, I'm not bashing on it. I'm just saying they
Got
a better deal.
And then they went out and got Tyrell Williams from the Chargers to team along with them, so they got more weapons. And then they got some help on the offensive line with Trent Brown from the Patriots. Not sure if he's worth the money. I think he got the highest contract ever for his position. He got $66 million. That's a lot of money. On the defensive side, they signed Vontaze Burfict from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
Which, Vontaze is going to Vontaze, so we'll see how many games he plays and how many games he gets suspended this year.
He's a good player, though.
He is.
He's crazy, but he's good.
Yeah, he's a good guy. They also, just the other day, they signed Richie Incognito to shore up that offensive line as well, and they cut former Dallas Cowboy Chaz Green.
So what record-wise? So it sounds like you are pretty high on what they did in the offseason, even though they're kind of seem like they're clueless a little bit.
Absolutely, that's the conundrum that I have with the Raiders. It doesn't make sense on the surface with the scouts and all that stuff, and then the first pick, and then all these other things. They're like, well, these are actually pretty good moves. So in all, I think the Raiders improved themselves a little bit. I don't know if they're going to be better than they were last year. I mean, they're still young.
And is that because the division's so strong?
Absolutely.
Is why you think that they're going to still struggle?
Absolutely. I mean, I've got them predicted to go 6-11, finish 4th in the division. I mean,
yeah.
Kansas City, the Chargers, the Broncos. The Broncos are going to be better than they were last year, but
maybe not. Maybe not record-wise.
Exactly. It all depends on quarterback play for the Broncos. Well, I know you'll break them down here in a minute.
Of course. So let's go. So you think they're going to win? Are there any games that you think could they get closer to 8 wins? Is when you break it down, when you look at it, is there any games you think might be able to go the other way?
No, I have it very hard for them to even win a division game this year. I think they're going to win 1 or 2 division games all year.
I would agree with that, man. I think they split with the Broncos, I think, is what I have. Maybe not.
I think they split with the Broncos and the Chiefs. That's usually who they split with.
Oh, you think they're split with the Chiefs?
I think they'll split with the Chiefs at home.
Oh, man. All right.
That's my upset pick of the year for the Raiders.
Oh, gosh. So I've got the Broncos here. The Broncos, they did a lot of good, man, actually. They got Kareem Jackson. They just re-signed Cliff Harris. They might have the best secondary in the NFL, man.
Yeah, but what about those edge rushers they let go?
That's a good thing they got the best secondary in the NFL, right? I like what they did at quarterback, man. Case Keenum is a career backup, and I question what John Elway was thinking by signing Case Keenum. I'm very confused by it because
I think he signed him because he couldn't get Kirk Cousins.
A duck is a duck, though, man. Right?
Absolutely.
And the Minnesota was just... It's a very special situation, and it just worked. So, anywho, they were able to recoup a draft pick because they did trade Case Keenum. So it didn't turn out to be a complete failure. Mm-hmm. They went after Flacco, who, for all intents and purposes, could be a 1-year rental, or he could be there for the next 2 years. We don't know. They're certainly not going to rush Locke around, but Locke is to me, I think he's phenomenal, and on top of that, he's one of the better, I think, values in the draft. I think I give Haskins a good value pick with the Redskins because they were talking about moving up so much.
Yeah,
and they were able just to get him where he fell. So I like Locke, man. I think he struggled with some things, but I think they can work on him. And we'll see how it rolls. But I think they had a pretty good offseason, and they weren't a bad team last year. They really weren't. They have these young receivers. They have Deshaun Hamilton, right? Bayshawn, as I like to call him. He's my dude. And then you have Cortland Sutton. You still have Emmanuel Sanders. They have Phillip Lindsay. Royce Freeman, I expect to do way better this season. They have some skill position good players. They got Noah Fant.
They got Jake Butt as well.
And Jake Butt. Man, I'm liking it. And I had to do this so many times because I almost liked it too much. The record I have them as is 7-9. And I think Chris told me he accidentally did the wrong ranking, so he ranked them as well, and he had the same record as me. Could I see them winning 9 games? Yeah, I really could. It wouldn't be surprising. I'll cover real quick what games could flip-flop, because they could be a wild card contender. They really could. So they start off their season versus the Raiders on the road at Monday Night Football. Is that the game you have the Raiders winning?
Yes.
Okay. I've been winning that game. They play Chicago in Denver. I have them beating Chicago. The Broncos, it's weird. If you go back and you look at their splits...
They're damn near unbeatable in Denver.
Yes, in September and the beginning of October. It's crazy. I have them week 3. They go to Green Bay. I have them losing to the Packers. Week 4, they play the Jags in Denver. I have them beating the Jags. They go to the Chargers. There's really not a home field advantage in in LA, but I have them losing to the Chargers. They beat the Titans the next week at home. I have them losing to the Chiefs at home. I have them losing to the Colts on the road. This is a flip-flop game for me. I could see them beating the Colts. I really could. I think it could happen.
It's in Indy?
But it's in Indy. That's I guess so I gave the edge to the home team there.
I picked Indy to beat them when I did my ranking.
This is the other game I feel skeptical about. I have them losing to the Browns in Denver. So I could. Those are the 2 games I think they could put them at 9. They take their bye week 10. This is when it starts to get kind of rough. I have them losing to the Vikings on the road. That's another game you might be able to talk about that's winnable, right? The next game, I have them losing to the Bills on the road. The Bills' defense ain't no punk. I think the Bills are going to surprise some people next year. Here's the question. Week 13, they play the Chargers again. I have the Chargers also winning. So if you go by my record, that means you've got a loss to the Colts, a loss to the Browns, a bye, a loss to the Vikings, a loss to the Bills, and a loss to the Chargers all in a row. Is it Drew Lock time if that happens?
If they're out of playoff contention by week 10, yeah.
They wouldn't be by week 10. But you throw in 3 more losses after week 10? Week 13 now, going into 14? I think so. Yeah. But the issue is that the 5 games minus the Chargers, which is the division game, so all bets are off, they could go the other way. We could be talking at a team that I went through this so many times, and I feel confident about 7 and 9 because I do think that a change of the guard at quarterback is going to happen. But we have a team that very well, if the coin flips their way and a couple things happen, could be a 10-win team. For real. I have them beating the Texans week 14, losing to the Chiefs week 15, beating the Lions week 16, and then beating the Raiders to finish the season. 7 and 9 is what I got. I did it 3 freaking times. And like I said, 9 or 10, if you're a Broncos fan, if I'm a Broncos fan, I'm feeling really good about my product right now. I think the draft was good. I think the free agency was good. I think you have a team that's going to contend for the next 3 to 5 years and be very, very, very good. Especially if Locke is who I think he's going to be.
I hope Locke is who I think he's going to be as well. I really like the kid coming out of college. I can't believe he fell to the second round.
All right, so who's next? You have the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's do the Chiefs.
So with the Chiefs, obviously you've got Patrick Mahomes, the reigning MVP. I mean, he's as good of a quarterback as I've ever seen.
Okay.
The way he throws the ball, arm slots, his ability to throw the ball downfield, deep ball throws. The biggest weakness I see is what's going to happen with the Tyreek Hill situation. Obviously, if Tyreek Hill hurt his child, he should never play in the NFL again. There's a lot of evidence pointing to that way. So, go back to college when he was at Oklahoma State. His then girlfriend, he did some stuff to her that he shouldn't have done. This is his last strike for me. If he did something, you got to let him go.
Well, Adrian Peterson was suspended an entire season after he just beat his children.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's okay to beat your children, but it was not broken bone, right? Was it?
No. So the Adrian Peterson situation, when he was a child, his grandma, when he would get in trouble,
a switch
was a switch.
Right.
So he did what was done to him. He thought that was right. A lot of people still do that to this day. Who's to say what's right or wrong to discipline your child? As long as you're not putting bruises on your child, I think as long as you spank them on their bottom and you're not leaving bruises, I think that's okay. Other than that, I think it's abuse.
Right.
So it depends on where the marks were and all that stuff. I can't recall all that stuff. I don't know if there was pictures or anything like that. That's neither here nor there. The NFL said you abused your child and this is your punishment.
With no Kareem Hunt and no Tyreek Hill, can Mahomes come close to what he did last year statistically?
I don't know. They've only got Sammy Watkins, really, and then Beckley Hardman that they drafted to replace Tyreek. I'm assuming that's what they did. He's a poor man's Tyreek, though. He's not.
Well, he's a rookie. We don't know what to expect. I mean, you think pedigree means so much, but then they play and you don't know, right? I mean, it takes some of these kids 3 years.
Yeah, but he didn't.
And then some of them got it right away, like Odell Beckham.
Yeah, but look at his stats from college. I mean, he didn't put out popping numbers.
Right.
That's the problem. The production's not there on the field. I mean, that's my biggest beef on.
I've heard good things from OTAs, but yes, I mean it's OTAs.
Yeah,
it's not game film. It's not games.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Michael Hardman works out as his replacement.
So in your opinion, the Raiders had a better offseason than the Chiefs?
That's hard to say. The Chiefs still got Tyrann Matthews and Frank Clark.
Okay.
They filled up 2 big holes. I mean, they let Eric Berry go. I think running back's probably their biggest weakness on offense. I mean, obviously they got Travis Kelce to throw the ball to. They've got capable wide receivers. That was proven last year. Other than the Tyreek Hill.
Well, Mahomes is just a baller. He's Brett Favre. I mean, if we draw a comparison here, let's talk about Brett Favre. Who was the best wide receiver Brett Favre had? Donald Driver? Antonio Freeman?
I would think probably Driver or Freeman, like you said. Yeah.
Sterling Shepard?
Shepard was a tight end that played only 4 or 5 years before.
No, you think his brother. Sterling Sharp, excuse me. Sterling Sharp got injured. He was good, very good. That was when they were at versus the Cowboys a lot. And we'd whoop his butt all the time.
Yeah. Well, he never beat us in Dallas. Just saying.
Right. So not, and I'm, talking out of my butt here, so to speak, but Favre never really had a Antonio Brown, right?
No.
I mean, I make the argument that Sterling Sharp's phenomenal. I very much liked him. And Antonio Freeman was very good. Donald Driver was very good, but they're not Antonio Brown, right?
No.
So I think Mahomes might be able to do it. What do you have the record as?
11-5.
Oh, man. Do you have them winning the division?
I do not.
Who do you have winning the division?
The Chargers.
I do too. Okay, good deal.
I think they take a step back because obviously you don't know what you're going to have without Tyreek if he's not there. And that's the big if for me. I know they got better at defensive end with Clark and all that stuff, but there's just a lot of unknowns with this team on offense.
And the Chargers are just nasty. And I'm excited to go over it because I did this 5 times, their schedule breakdown, because I kept thinking I gave them too many wins. So, spoiler alert, I have them winning the division. I have them winning 12 games.
That's not too big of a
12-4.
12-4, 11-5, the Chiefs start out at Jacksonville, then they play the Raiders. That's 2 wins right there, and then they go on the road, they're on the road the first 2 games, and then they got the Ravens at home. That could be a hiccup right there because of the Ravens' defense.
Right.
So that one's a toss in the air. I gave them a loss at that one. I know it was at home, but then I got them rebounding on the road at Detroit. And then I've got the Colts coming in there and them losing to the Colts. I think the Colts are a better team than them. And then I got them beating the Texans. I think the Texans are going to have a down year. We don't know what's going to happen with them. They had a lot of injuries last year. They did some good things in the offseason, not a lot in my opinion. I have them losing to the Broncos. And then going on, they got the Packers the next week, beating the Packers, beating the Vikings. And then I have them beating the Titans. And then they lose to the Chargers. And then they got the Raiders. And I think the Raiders, the Raider. I pulled that upset with the Raiders earlier. So, and then, at the end of the season, they got to play the Patriots, Broncos, Bears, Chargers.
Oh, my gosh.
So the last month of the season is going to be really, really hard for this team. They play really good teams.
How many of those games are home games?
2.
Ooh, all right.
They're at Patriots and at Chicago.
Well, I'm intrigued to see how that goes.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
So the Chargers were already pretty good, and they didn't lose anybody, really. I mean, they're 3 deep at running back with Eckler, Justin Jackson, and Melvin Gordon.
Easily.
Mike Williams started to kind of come into his own the last month of the season.
Kid from Clemson.
And you have Keenan Allen. So and then they added Thomas Davis, Jerry Tillery, Nasir Adderley. Their defense is going to be nasty. The only problem I have with them as a team is that how many times have we thought the Chargers were going to be really good and they weren't under the Phillip Rivers era? Like, how many times has they freakishly started 0-4 or 1-5 for some weird reason?
Phillip Rivers is the Tony Romo of the AFC.
Right. So that's the one hiccup I have. So I have them starting the season with a loss to the Colts, beating the Lions, beating the Texans, beating the Fins, beating the Broncos, beating the Steelers, beating the Titans. That's a lot of wins in a row. Losing to the Bears, losing to the Pack, beat the Raiders, beat the Chiefs, bye week. Beat the Broncos, beat the Jags, beat the Vikings, beat the Raiders, lose to the Chiefs last game of the season. There's your 12-4. I don't feel good about the stretch of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins that I have them getting in a row before losing to the Bears. But I went through it multiple times, and they just match up with the Steelers really well. The Broncos, I think, is going to be. I think they're going to. They can split with them, but I think they're going to sweep them this year. And it's got a weird dynamic kind of thing the way that works. Because in my world, I think the reason why they sweep them is because they're playing against Drew Lock the second time they play against the Broncos.
Yeah,
is why I think that. And then the Finns, obviously, I'm with you on the Texans. I think the Texans are going to have a down year. And I agree with you. I think the Colts are one of the better teams in the AFC, so I have them losing to them. So 12-4 is where I got it, and we have them winning. We have, once again, it's going to come down to, more than likely, that last game of the year will be for the division.
Yeah.
Going by both of us, they'll be playing for the division right there.
That'll be your flex game right there.
And that'll be your Sunday Night Football game for the last game, for the last week.
Just think about that. Two teams competing for the division, 12 wins apiece.
Oh, man.
Going for 12 wins, I should say.
So sticking on football, Chris and I are doing, first off, we are part of a website called Creator Rank, which launches this weekend. Please, on June 1st, check this website out. I'm really pumped to be a part of it, and with all the individuals. We're doing a draft right now, actually, a dynasty draft, and Chris and I have never done that before. So for those of our listeners who are into fantasy football, what dynasty draft is, we're using an app called Sleeper, by the way, that I would urge you to check out. It is a very, very cool fantasy app. But in a dynasty, you draft your team, and it's kind of like Keeper, except you keep your entire team.
Yep.
You cut 3 people at the end of the season, and you do a 3-round rookie draft with your teams. So this is a 14-person league. It's 20 rounds long, and it's Keeper, and it's 2 quarterbacks. So it threw Chris and I kind of for a loop a little bit, so we just kind of wanted to go over our teams real quick. So you know who we got, who we like, and you're listening to the pod because hopefully you trust our opinions and what we talk about. So these might be some rookies that you want to take note on, especially that I tend to always go after rookies and opportunities. So my first pick, it's round 1. I have the 8th pick. I picked Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley fell to me. People are worried about the injury. People are talking about trading him. Heck, by the time fantasy season comes around, Gurley might be a second-round pick towards the beginning. I am telling you right now to buy Todd Gurley. At that late, that if he keeps falling to you, he's too good to pass up.
Yeah.
Chris, who was your first pick?
I was fortunate enough that everybody passed up on Ezekiel Elliott, and I was able to take him 6th overall.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean he's a stud. Legit stud. The only thing you have to worry about is the off-the-field issues.
Yes, we'll see how
that's my biggest hindrance with him. Is the NFL going to say, hey, you're suspended 4 games, and then I'm kind of like, crap.
So I'm torn on Antonio Brown, right? I didn't want to go for him in the second round. I waited till pick 50. I got Antonio Brown with my third pick, number 8. And I think the Raiders are going to be losing in a lot of games. I don't know what kind of production I'm going to get out, but at that value, I couldn't pass.
No.
Are there any picks you made like that where you're like, I can't believe this guy's still here. This is such value after round 3 or 4?
My guy, I think, is probably going to be Derrick Henry. I mean, I got him at the 9th pick of the 6th round.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of people aren't high on him for some reason this year. I'm not sure why. They think last year was down the stretch was a fluke, but I mean, you got to listen to me, people. When you've already got Ezekiel Elliott and Le'Veon Bell, by the way, and Derrick Henry's still on the board at 6'9", it's not too big of a risk to say, okay, I'll take a starting running back for a good team.
That's crazy. And what's wild is that even if it wasn't a 2-quarterback league, he probably would have been a 3rd-round pick.
Yes, he should have been a 3rd-round pick. Realistically, he's probably a 2nd-round pick in non-keepers.
So any young players that you targeted or that you got that you want our listeners to kind of know about for fantasy relevance?
You know, there was a lot of young players that I really targeted, and they all got drafted before I wanted to take them.
Okay.
And what's funny, though, is, in that league, somebody called me a homer because I have 2 Cowboys players.
That was me.
That was you? Zach called me a homer. I didn't want to draft Michael Gallup. I wanted to draft Cortland Sutton.
Right.
But when I went back around to 11-6 and Cortland Sutton was taking 2 picks before me, Michael Gallup was the best player left on the board. So at the 6th pick of the 11th round, I couldn't pass up that value. So that's the young player that I drafted that I think has potential.
I went kind of the opposite. I have a lot of youth. In the 13th round, pick 8, I went with the Steelers receiver and took a flyer on Deontay Johnson. I like his route running ability, and I just think the Steelers know their stuff with running backs. I took a flyer on Kalen Ballage at 12-5, the backup running back on Miami. The reason why is because Kenyon Drake apparently can't block for the quarterback, which will put your butt on the bench. So I think opportunities are going to be there. Because of the Chiefs' running back situation, they drafted a running back, Darwin Thompson. I got him at 12-4. I think cream rises. I think he might be better than Williams. We'll see. It's a flyer pick. Bayshawn Hamilton, it's actually Deshaun, but he's a PPR machine. And I think that him and Mr. Drew Lock, who I drafted by the way, I think they're going to have a magical connection for years to come. So I've got that to going. Took a flyer on Deontay Foreman. And then I got McCole Hardman from Kansas City. Took a flyer on him as well.
Yeah, I mean, those are good flyers. I took a flyer on Duke Johnson at 12-9. He's not going to get a lot of playing time in Cleveland. I think he gets traded.
Or cut.
I mean, he's a PPR machine, too.
Yeah, he'll go somewhere like that. You know what's going to suck? He'll get cut and go to New England and just make the world even worse for everyone.
He won't go to New England.
Because then you'll have 2 running backs that can catch the ball.
He won't go to New England. The reason why is because he's mad about the amount of touches he gets now. So if he's not going to get any more touches, he's not...
That's true. That makes sense.
He won't go to New England. He's going to go somewhere where they're going to say, you're going to get 20 touches a game.
So if you were grading your draft, are there any other players you want to talk about real quick?
I did take a flyer on Jake Sternberger, the tight end from Texas
I like
A&M.
him. I
did too. He's so... he's going to be the backup this year, but I don't think Jimmy Graham's going to stay all that healthy for Green Bay. His skills have diminished.
And he'll probably be the starting tight end next year.
Yes, so, I think that's a really good value pick at 13-6. Every guy that I said I had another round on to pick got picked 2 picks after I picked another guy.
Right.
So I decided that I wasn't passing up on players anymore because...
Pretty wild, man. So I power ranked and scripted who I wanted, and I got every single one of them with 6 picks in a row. It was so weird. I'm looking at the draft board. I wanted Dante Foreman. I got him at 11-8, and then I had 3 picks because of trades coming up in the 12th at the beginning of the round. I got Deshaun Hamilton, Darwin Thompson, and it was between Kalen Ballage or Jalen Samuels, and I chose Ballage over Samuels.
Yeah, a lot of the reason why I didn't get my guys, this league that we're in, there's a lot of trades that go down.
Yeah.
And I made 2 trades, and I for 3 consecutive rounds, I had 0 picks.
Yeah, I had the same thing happen to me. That's why I had so many in the 12th, and I just kind of waited, and it worked out. There's a couple players that I missed on that I wanted. I wanted Marquise Brown. I was really hurt that I missed out on that. I did want not Damian Harris, excuse me. Who is it that I wanted really bad? D.D. Westbrook was another player that I had targeted big time. And really that's it. I did want Sam Darnold, and you took him from me. I think Sam Darnold's going to be huge this year. I also wanted Josh Allen, but I made a decision to draft Lamar Jackson over him, which could kill me or could help me. We'll see that. So if you're grading your team right now from A to F, what would you give your fantasy team?
B-.
Okay. I'm going to give mine a C because I don't know dynasty-wise. Unless people want to trade with me, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay afloat at quarterback because my quarterback situation is Ben Roethlisberger, Lamar Jackson, and Drew Lock. So unless Drew Lock plays this season, I'm going to be in a deep hole at quarterback. I might actually have to go target another quarterback like Ryan Tannehill and hope he takes Mariota's job or something of that nature, right?
Well, Mariota can't stay healthy, so there's a good chance Tannehill is going to play this year.
And on top of that, if you really break everything down, the thing that sucks is that running quarterbacks don't stay healthy forever. So in a perfect world, I should have jumped on quarterback a little bit earlier and maybe had 4 if I was going to go with a runner because for all we know, I'm a big believer that Lamar Jackson is going to have a Mike Vick-linked career, but it could easily be RG3 in an instant, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, those are things we don't know. So, I give it a C, and because of that, because of the question at quarterback. Now, I have a lot of rookies, and I think I picked the right ones. So, I do really feel that I do have trade chips on the table to make a team work. But once again, that's an unknown. That's something out of my control. Somebody has to come knocking for that, right? So, up next, we're going to go to entertainment in closing today on this episode. So, I'm a wrestling fan. I don't watch it every week. I watch maybe 1 or 2 pay-per-views a year. Like I've watched WrestleMania probably every year since I was like 12 years old. So there's a really cool thing going on right now. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's a new wrestling league called the AEW. Have you heard of this, Chris?
I actually saw some stuff on it this morning. There's a lot of wrestlers that came out and were really liking what they saw.
Yeah. So it reminds me, number one, my friend JT got me back into wrestling, right? Because I took a little hiatus for a minute. There was a wrestler that was his favorite called Dean Ambrose. And Dean Ambrose just pulled a Scott Hall. So wrestling was at its best for me in the 90s when it was WCW versus the WWF, right? You had DX, you had the NWO. One of the coolest moments ever was watching Monday Night Nitro. And they were losing to WWF at this time, kind of. And they sort of, all of a sudden, they started bringing over their competition. Well, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash come through the rafters, and now they're members of that league. It was crazy. Nobody saw it coming. Well, on this pay-per-view, the last match is happening. Chris Jericho, who I know you know who he is, one of my favorite wrestlers, is actually a part of the AEW with some other guys that are lesser-known names that were real popular overseas and such. Well, Dean Ambrose, now known as Jon Moxley, John's his real first name, Moxley is just made up, comes from there, comes down and does a special move on Jericho, does a special move on the ref, and then beats up Kenny Omega, who just signed with AEW, who is huge in Japan. So it reminded me exactly 100% of WCW and Scott Hall. It's all that I thought of. And I am really peaked. There's going to be a pay-per-view coming up in June. It's going to be another event with these guys. I'm going to watch it. And then they're going to have a Monday night show or Friday night or who knows what night, but they're going to be having a weekly show on TNT starting probably September, October.
So they're replacing the WCW essentially.
Yeah. And they're full on heads. I know Goldust fought his brother. Blood everywhere. I'm talking everywhere. Like Cody Rhodes, who's one of the founders of it, had pink hair because his hair is blonde. He had so much blood on him. The guys that own this league have all the money in the world. It's the guys that own the Jaguars.
Yeah. Speaking of Cody Rhodes, the WWE, whatever they decided to do with Stardust and Goldust, I mean, some of these storylines that they're running over there is like, what the hell are you doing?
Well, you know what the problem is.
Too much talent.
No, that and the problem is Vince McMahon. Like, I was listening to a podcast on the way over here. Chris Jericho does a podcast, and he was interviewing Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, and he was talking about why he left the storyline, and he's explaining the terrible storylines that Vince McMahon would give him. And he'd be like, did Vince write this? And then he would go into Vince's office, and then Vince would make him do these stories. You have the NXT, which Triple H pretty much runs, which is the youth that they make. It's like their farm system, so to speak, and they graduate. And I don't watch it. I don't know anybody about that, but I've heard that the product, the wrestling, the story, it's all better. And everyone's just waiting for Triple H to kind of completely do everything. But with the AEW, they're at war. Jon Moxley, go on YouTube, everybody, and check out Jon Moxley's rant. He just gets pissed after he kicks all these people's butts and talks about how it's open season on the WWE and I'm excited to see what happens, man. It was fun. It was like a spectacle. It was on a Saturday night, like boxing, right? Which felt really cool. If they're smart, they're not going to compete with football. If they're smart, they're going to continue to have their pay-per-views on Saturday nights like boxing or UFC would be. And they're going to have their weekly show on like a Wednesday night.
Well, the thing about it is they're going to compete with college football. College football might be more popular than the NFL.
Yeah, but with fighting, you know what I mean? Like, UFC fights draw the Saturday. People get together. People do that. I mean, think about it. If I'm like, hey, Chris, let's have a few beers and watch AEW tonight. Would you be down for that?
Yeah. The thing about UFC, though, is they'd start their main card at 10:30, 11 o'clock.
This was late, too.
Most of the college games are done, so that would make sense, too.
This was in Vegas. It started at like 9.
Yep.
So it totally, dude, I think they should stick to that formula. They are trying to compete with the WWE, but why not become its own thing? Wednesday night, no competition for wrestling because you've got Monday and Tuesday, right? Mm-hmm. Is WWE. You have your thing Wednesday, so if you're a true blue wrestling fan, you just watch it 3 nights. And then Saturday, it never interferes while they build their product. They can go head-to-head if they want. I'm not against it. It's not like I'm watching it, but I will be watching Monday Night Football over wrestling, period. And with social media these days, I'm not going to be rewatching. I mean, you already know everything that's happened, right?
Yeah.
So, long story short, I like what I saw. I'm paying attention. I'm going to watch it. And I think you should watch it with me so we could piss off our wives watching wrestling. So,
I just wish my wife would remember the Wi-Fi password.
Yeah. So going to movies, we have 2 movies coming up. Godzilla's this week, X-Men's next week. Are you interested in either one of these movies?
Yeah, I'm actually interested in both. I've been watching the previews and all that. I think Dark Phoenix is going to be a good movie. I think it's the last of the franchise, though, isn't it? Because the MCU is taking over and they're basically saying James McAvoy and all y'all got to go.
They're going to reboot it, yeah. Did you see that there's a petition to make Danny DeVito play Wolverine in the new film? What? So, anywho.
Do you see who's playing the new Wolverine, though?
Have they announced it?
Charlie Hunnam.
Is it official?
That's what I've seen.
Well, that would be cool. Okay. But yeah, I'm all about Godzilla. I really liked the Godzilla movie that came out a few years ago.
I did too. That was really good.
And this looks phenomenal. It looks like 2.5 hours of straight killing and action with monsters.
King of the monsters.
Yeah. X-Men I'm not as invested in. I'll see it. And I'm going to see X Godzilla on Friday with my friend Adam. So I'll give a full review of what I think on our next pod next week. And as far as X-Men goes, the storyline has been a lot better since they rebooted it, kind of. And they kind of made it where it all still exists in the same universe, where every movie is canon, but not because they reset it with Days of Future Past. And I didn't love Apocalypse, but I did like it. And they certainly have been putting out watchable movies. The best movies that the X-Men has made, in my opinion, number 1 is going to be X-Men First Class. Number 2 is the Old Man Logan movie, Logan. And then Days of Future Past. Those are my top 3. The old X-Men movies, I watch them now, don't do it for me.
They're garbage.
I'm excited to see them reboot it, but it makes me less invested in this, especially because I don't know, are they going to want to keep these characters, or are they going to reboot and like, hey man, I like this guy Cyclops, let's keep them, or are they going to want to make them adults, or there's so many questions. It's kind of like Spider-Man did their little 2-movie reboot and then ended it again, and now we're back. So I don't know what direction Disney's going to want to go and what the MCU is going to become of them. So I know that I will watch it, and that X-Men is something I hold very close to my heart. X-Men and Batman is my jam, dude. And I've been so mad at the mistreatment of the franchise that I hope this is a good movie, and I hope they send this out, because they've tried to correct it. I hope they send it out in style, man. That comes out next Friday. I'm going to go see that as well. I don't know, on the weekend. I probably will ask you to see that with me if you're down. But I will check it out, and hopefully it does fan service to the franchise.
Yeah, I hope so too.
And besides that, Game of Thrones is over, man. What are we watching, dude? Are you watching any shows right now?
I'm actually, because I went on that huge binge just trying to get caught up and everything.
Taking a break?
I'm taking a break from watching new shows. I'm catching up on all my old shows. I'm watching Forged in Fire. I really like that show.
Okay.
The wife and I like to watch SWAT, SEAL Team. So we've got a lot of those shows, New Amsterdam. We've got a lot of shows we're catching up on, and that's really what we've been doing, is catching up on old stuff.
So I'm watching Clone Wars. Okay, I've got Clone Wars going on. I'm on season 4. So I've got to catch up on those. I'm going to try to finish that series by the time it comes back on the Disney Channel. The Disney app launches, and they're going to have Clone Wars on it, and they're going to have The Mandalorian, which I'm super jacked about. I've talked about this on the pod before. I am watching Westworld. My goal is to finish both seasons before the new season starts. My wife and I are watching the Sarah Connor Chronicles because I'm hyped about Terminator, like big time. And she's actually digging the show as well. I think we're like 6 episodes in so far. And other than that, I really don't know. Stranger Things comes out in July. I'm going to watch that for sure. And then nothing else really piques my interest. So it's going to be mainly sports and talking about sports for sure. So Chris and I put out our first podcast, Lineup Locked, for fantasy football. please check that out. Give us a listen. That's where the majority of our fantasy football talk is going to come from. We are going to talk about other things on here, but that is a free pod. It costs no money. It's going to be on iTunes soon. If not, it's on Anchor right now. We do have a show coming up this weekend, so Chris and I are bouncing back and forth. We're still going to put our heart and soul into Chew on Sports. This is our baby. And we are the employees of someone for Lineup Lock, but it's exciting that we got noticed, and it's going to enable us to grow and everything else. So check that out. Give us your pointers and your feedback on that as well. And coming up next week on Chew on Sports, we do have an NBA Mock Draft 2.0. We're going to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals. And we're going to start with an NFC breakdown for the NFL. And Chris, we're going to start with the NFC North.
Boom.
Okay, we're going to close with the NFC East. Period.
Yeah.
All right. We're saving that for last.
It's gonna be a bloodbath for who gets the Cowboys.
And free agency, if anything, if there's any shifts or anything goes down here within the next week, we will for sure be talking about that as well. Personally, I don't think much is going to change though, as far as any of this that we gave the listeners this
Gerald
week.
McCoy would be the big one.
Yeah, so
he's visited the Browns and he's going to Baltimore.
And the NBA should stay the same, NFL, so that should be about it. So we'll break it down. We're excited about it. Check out Lineup Locked. Keep it up. We'll keep pushing out the content here. As always, if you're listening for the first time, keep listening. We're going to keep bringing it. If you're a continuous listener, thank you so much. If you haven't gone and given us a review, please do so. If you don't know how to, Google it, please, or call me, or text me, or message me, and I'll tell you how. The reviews mean a lot. It helps us stay on the searches. When people search for sports, they will find our name before other people so that we can get more listens and continue to grow this darn thing. Chris and I want to thank you for listening. We're out.
Peace.
Peace.